So welcome. Welcome to a talk tonight on the Capricorn new moon in 2021. And I'm going to follow this brief talk with a new moon group meditation. And then there'll be an opportunity to open up to discussion. So just briefly, the reason I've chosen the new moon, it's a very poignant time for groups of like-minded people to come together. In the lunar cycle, the full moon and the new moon are particular opportunities for group work when, if you like, the energy channels are more open and the effects of that group work are more efficient, more pronounced. And many groups all around the world are starting to recognize this. And so there's also that effect of the many groups coming together at these times. So the full moon, if we look just briefly at the lunar cycle, the full moon tends to be the time that brings up the particular issues relating to each zodiac sign. And depending where you fall, your planets fall, your rising sign, your sun sign, your moon sign fall within that will determine how that affects you. But the time of the full moon tends to raise up for our awareness issues that need healing, things that need changing, things that need addressing from our past, from past lives in our present time. And then between the full moon and the new moon is a time of working through. So the realizations will come up for the full moon. And then we have that sort of 2-week period where we're supported in working through and releasing and healing and coming to a point of more clarity, of crystallized clarity about the issue, ready to make the necessary changes in the very positive energy of the new moon. So the new moon has an energy of change. It supports birth process, new growth, the shoot coming up out of the earth, that sort of thing. So then between the new moon and the full moon, that idea, because it's an idea at the new moon, gradually builds. It builds in material, it builds in energy, and becomes increasingly manifest. Until we go into the next cycle, when the next healing, the next particular issue on your soul's list, if you like, comes up for your awareness. And this supports a continual process of evolution and growth of things that are unconscious becoming increasingly conscious. And so this is playing out not just on an individual level, but on a global level. So it'll play out for the individual, it will play out for families, for communities, for nations, for the human family, universally. So there's no limit to the effects of this lunar cycle. So Capricorn, Capricorn is a capricious time. It's each zodiac sign has a keynote, and this keynote relates to a deeper meaning behind the sign. It's key, if you like, that unlocks that meaning. And the keynote for Capricorn is, lost am I in light supernal, yet on that light I turn my back. And I'm hoping that after the talk tonight, you will actually understand in more depth what that is. Okay, so Capricorn is symbolized by the goat. And if you think of the characteristics of a goat is very stubborn. It has these 2 horns, and those horns symbolize duality. A goat will put its head down and charge forward with that strong, stubborn will energy. Goats tend to live on the sides of rocky mountains and terrains that are quite arid, and terrains that many creatures would not survive. They're herd animals, and they are very connected to the earth, and yet also quite light-footed. Goats can sort of leap from rock to rock and negotiate precipices, negotiate terrain that many other animals would not be able to. And as the goat, this is the lower expression of the Capricornian energy. Capricorn is an earth sign, and the goat symbolizes the very materialistic nature of this sign. Okay, so Capricorn is probably the most materialistic sign, an attachment and placing value on material advancement, material success. And the stubborn drive, determination, and toward material success in the world is very Capricornian. It's also quite an isolating sign. Okay, so it's ambitious, not for the group, but in a isolated individual way. This is in its lower expression. Its higher expression, it's probably one of the most spiritual signs, because that lower desire nature of a more material attached to the senses in the world transforms into a high spiritual aspiration. And I want to give you an example of this by giving you sort of the story, if you like, of Capricorn. So Capricorn is associated with high places, and especially with mountains, and the idea of climbing that mountain. So not just the climbing of the physical mountain, but the climbing of and overcoming of a challenge. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn tends to be the planet that presents us with the challenges that are karmic in nature, but there to really bring out the qualities in us that need to come forward, that we need to negotiate, especially the rocky path as we get up higher on the mountain. So it's Capricorn can become very crystallized. It rules the mineral kingdom. And the idea is that desire, material desire, can become very focused, won't see anything else, very ambitious and quite crystallized, not open to change, not open to seeing things differently. So it brings out the best and the worst in humanity. And I think this, just as an aside, we're seeing this in the world at the moment. We're in the midst of Capricorn. We've got Saturn and Pluto conjunction reappearing, the one that sort of sparked this whole coronavirus. And we're seeing the best and the worst expression of humanity in our everyday lives. So we've also got to be aware, if we've got this polarity of the sort of lower expression of Capricorn and the higher expression, sometimes that spiritual aspiration that's lifting up out of the material, lifting up into spiritual goals, sometimes that can be a selfish ambition as well. And this is sort of speaking to people who are spiritually minded, people who are definitely on a soul's path. They can become quite focused on their own spiritual goals, forgetting that the spiritual life is very much about at-one-ment, about service to all. It's not about your own individual spiritual advancement. It's about helping others in their spiritual advancement. And this is due to Sometimes the third ray and the fifth ray, they both come strongly through Capricorn, and sometimes that third ray energy can become quite manipulative in terms of energy. But the higher vibration of the path is the path of the Bodhissatva. And the Bodhisattva path is the path of selfless service for the good of all, of giving up your own ambitions, your own desires, and doing what you are called to do and what is needed for the greater good, for the highest good of all. So it's unreserved devotion to a service and to the uplifting of humanity, of consciousness toward the top of the mountain. So we have, if you think of the mountain, you think of a mountain, and we have the sort of grassier plains at the base of the mountain. And if we were to go walking around this base of the mountain, the walking is fairly easy. People might engage in quite pleasurable activities, stop and have picnics at the base of a mountain. Life is not very challenging at the base of the mountain, okay? And in Capricorn, the sign, we have Sagittarius, it said, arrives, that direct arrow points Sagittarius to the mountain. And Sagittarius, the archer on his horse, arrives at the base of the mountain. And at that point, sees the goal, sees the straight and narrow path up the mountain, and puts down his bow, his arrow, leaves the horse, and embarks upon this journey up the mountain. And this is the journey that the Capricornian energy calls to the spiritual seeker. So you can stay in the plains down the bottom of the mountain, in the valleys, immersed in the material world, in the fogs and the mists that cloud the truth. Or you can be called to that path straight up the mountain. Now, I was reading, sometimes that path, well, that path straight up the mountain is not a straight and narrow, easy path. No, not at all. It's different for everybody. And the reason is because the terrain is very different for different people. And the terrain, the earth, this is symbolic of our karma. So everybody climbing that mountain will have a slightly different path depending upon what capacities, what issues, what things within them need healing, what karmic relationships they have to work through in this lifetime. So some people might be able to just go straight up the mountain. Others will be diverting to deal with things, or maybe going off on a path this way and that way, and more zigzagging up the mountain, or maybe zigzagging for a while until they pay off that karma, and then the path is more straight and narrow. So this is the path, what we would call the path of initiation. So the spiritual aspiration, that sort of focused drive and ambition, that willpower of the goat down on the plains, is gradually transformed into a spiritual aspiration. And the increasingly the person is called into service, into a path of their soul work, and becomes aware of their soul's purpose in any given lifetime. So the goat is making its way up the mountain. And the path at the bottom is reasonably easy, but as we traverse further up the mountain or move, it gets steeper, it gets harder, it's more physically challenging, it's more emotionally challenging. We're called to dig deep and find things like perseverance, to find courage, to keep going, to have that determination, that will. As we get toward the top of the mountain, it gets quite rocky and steep, and the path may disappear altogether because fewer others have gone before us. So there's not such a well-trodden path. We may have to find our own path. It may be that the path is only revealed one step at a time, like stepping stones that just appear as we need them. But nevertheless, the perseverance is there. And the increasingly spiritually attuned person becoming more and more less involved in personal service and more impersonal service makes their way up the mountain. And many of the hardest challenges are in the last push, the last bit. And eventually the goat emerges onto the top of the mountain, above the clouds and the mists and the fogs that were in the valley, up into the clear light, up into what's called the light supernal. And this is the light of initiation. This is the light of transfiguration. This is the point at which the third eye especially is fully opened. And this is symbolized by the transformation of that goat into the unicorn. And the unicorn, you think you've gone from dual horns into a single horn that comes from the area of the Ajna chakra, the third eye. And the unicorn has a clear focus. A unicorn is often depicted surrounded in a beautiful ethereal light. It's a highly spiritual animal, almost not of this world. So the veils between the more physical world and the higher spiritual realities are thin now. So at the top of the mountain, from the mountaintop, everything is seen in absolute clarity in this light supernal of the higher self. So this is when the spiritual person steps into the first true expression of their divinity, of who they are. The Christ consciousness is fully immersed in the physical form. And it's said that the Capricorn rules the Antakarana, the rainbow bridge between the lower personality ego of the person and the higher spiritual self, the soul. And it is in this moment of initiation that the Antakarana is fully formed, open and clear. That rainbow bridge is the soul and the personality become one, totally in communication. And the third eye is opened. And not only the third eye, there's almost a triangle forms in the higher centers, a relationship between the centers in the head, the third eye, the crown, and another center we call the altar major. And you could almost think of that triangle as relating to the top of the mountain is not the end of the spiritual path. Okay, it's actually the first true initiation. It's actually the beginning of further spiritual paths. But what happens on top of that mountain? So the spiritual being who has become the Bodhissatva becomes an initiate. And all is revealed, truth is revealed. And now and there is an awareness of the divine spark. Okay, there's an awareness, you could say in Christian terms, of the God within. There's awareness of the Godhead, of the monad. And the monad, that awareness is universal and holds the keys to understanding the universal nature of all. So from the top of the mountain, there is only one way to go. There is nowhere higher. You think about on the top of a mountain, you see things clearly, you see things in all directions, you often gain a new perspective. If you're like me and you've got a particular affinity for climbing mountains, I have a moon in Capricorn, so I love to climb mountains, but because the moment I get to the top of that mountain, something in me shifts and changes. I see things differently. The struggle, you forget the struggle climbing up the mountain. You may have been absolutely exhausted just before the top, but this lift that you feel on the top, the light and the energy is so profound that you completely forget the struggle. So there is only now one path. And this is where the keynote, if I remind, lost am I in light supernal. So at this point, the initiate gives up their own spiritual ambition. It said the rich man, the rich spiritual man at this point gives away his riches and is able to pass through the eye of the needle, and that eye of the needle being the opening of the third eye. So at the top of the mountain, lost am I in light supernal, yet on that light I turn my back. And this relates to the idea that once reaching this state of enlightenment, filled with the light supernal, there's only one way to go, and that's back down the mountain to help those souls who are still struggling up the mountain. And this is the Bodhisattva path. This is the path that says, I will not be free of this realm. I will not stop helping until all souls have reached the top of the mountain. And so you can see that that is a tremendous act of love, of service, and of sacrifice. In Buddhism, Capricorn is spoken of as the third path. So you can see that the Trinity is coming through here, the third ray, the triangle in the head, the third path. And the third path in Buddhism is where you have the first true experience of emptiness and a burning desire to see all beings experience this state arises in fullness within the person. So you can see the parallels with that Bodhisattvic path. It's the third path of seeing, the true third eye, and the integration of these head centers. The ruler Saturn rules karma. So that's those paths along the way. But that straight and narrow path up the mountain also relates to when the kundalini energy in the base chakra is able, through the clearing of the paths and the opening of the centers, is able to travel up through the sushumna to eventually reaching the crown in true enlightenment and reaching to open. And it's almost as if as you travel up that mountain, you get periods of rest. It's almost like there's little benches along the way where you can rest. And this is a time when a chakra is opening. Okay, so I equate it to the path, to the idea of the fourth ray of harmony through conflict. We go through a conflict, there's a period of harmony before the next level of conflict, there's a period of harmony. And although it's a path that has moments of respite, it is still a straight and narrow path upward. So Capricorn rules the 10th house. And this is the house of stepping into all that you are in a more public way. So it can be your career, your highest aspirations, whether they be spiritual aspirations. It can be stepping into letting others see who you are and taking on your role in the world. The world leader. It's your status in the world, but not a status from a lower material viewpoint, more a status in terms of your spiritual self. So it's very much the idea that we don't serve the world by dimming down our light. We need to stand at the top of the mountain and stand in all we are, because that is how we help others to find and let their light shine. So by hiding our light under a bushel, we serve nobody. And this sometimes this period of initiation is where the soul may be asked in a lifetime to step up into the role of more of a spiritual leader, or somebody who becomes quite active in the world and helping others up that path. So this there's a lot in there, and I hope that in telling it as a sort of a story and a path up the mountain, this is how I relate to Capricorn. And Capricorn can rule things that are hidden. Okay, so I almost think as you're going up that path up the mountain, things are revealed that you didn't know about when you were just enjoying yourself down in the sort of more material aspect at the bottom of the mountain. But also the idea that the mountain connects, is grounded in the energy of the earth, and Capricorn is an earth sign. But the mountain reaches up to the highest, it reaches up to the heavenly light. And there's an opportunity at the top of the mountain to bring down heaven onto earth, so to spiritualize matter. It's like Moses at the top of the mountain, bringing down, the commandments that help us to live an enlightened, a spiritual life. And so there's a lot to do with the symbology of the sign that helps us to grasp a greater understanding when we look at it from a more spiritual point of view, rather than looking at the more personality aspects of Capricorn. So you can see it begs the question, if we don't look at Capricorn so much from a personal point of view, but we look at, okay, what's going on in the world that relates to this Capricornian energy? Definitely we have Saturn playing a role in a karmic role. This world situation is bringing out, is revealing many things along the path. A question that I would put to you for your consideration is humanity as a whole taking some kind of initiation? Is humanity as a whole starting up that straight and narrow path up the mountain? Is this virus prompting that process? So if you look at the Capricorn, the fact that we have started this new year, instead of leaving the challenges of the previous year behind us, we've brought them into this new year because we haven't yet learned what we need to. We haven't addressed what we needed to. We haven't made the changes that we needed to. And it feels like the tension is getting worse. And we were talking earlier about people feeling a greater sense of disillusionment, feeling a heavy energy. And that heavy energy is part of holding on to what needs to go. Whenever there is heaviness, whenever there is a heavy energy, whether it's a heavy feeling in your physical body or a heavy feeling in your heart, your emotions, your chest, it means the energy is stuck and not flowing. So maybe we do need to start collectively moving up that mountain, and we're not. Something is holding us down, and it's our material values. It's our attachment to things and to the material world, to money, to the way our economy works, to the way power works, not looking after our planet, not looking after the greater good of all, the uneven distribution of wealth, because Capricorn's very tied in with money and with energy. Being an earth sign, you could think of the crystallization, that attachment to the material world is very much an attachment to money. And we measure success in the material world in terms of how much money you have and how many things you have. And this is very much what's being challenged at the moment. People are losing their livelihoods. People are being challenged in so many ways in terms of their values at the moment. We're being challenged in terms of trying to discern truth from what is not truth. We're being challenged as a human family unbelievably at the moment, that I would even wonder if we're a bit further up that path. I'd like to think so. But also remember that if we look at this idea of Capricorn, there have been many beings, and there are many beings from realms beyond this, from dimensions beyond ours, and planets and universes beyond ours, who have trod this path, who have reached the heights of the mountains and beyond, and who have made a commitment to come down and help the rest of us up that path. So it's an illusion to think that we are isolated on our own. We're not. But we have to ask for that help. We have to know it's there and we have to seek it. And we have to do that collectively. We have to do that together. There are many mountains in the world that you cannot climb on your own. Okay, there's no possible way to climb them on your own. It's usually a team effort. You usually need other people and lots of support in place along the way to reach that pinnacle. So I'm throwing lots of ideas, just let them stew, and we can have a discussion about those after the meditation. But I hope that that gives you an idea of the energy of Capricorn and maybe what you've been experiencing in the last few days. Because remember, in the moon, the lunar cycle, the new moon starts to have its effect for about 48 hours before the zenith of the new moon, and that was at 5 o'clock this morning British time, and for about 48 hours after. So we've reached the zenith. We're still in the 48 hours when that is when the energy is most concentrated. That's when many people who are quite attuned to the lunar energies really feel that energy. So there will be a lifting of this heaviness, of this energy that people are sensing at this moment right now. But we've also got to embrace this is here for a reason. It's here to bring up the things that we need to address personally, to bring up the things that we need to address and look at collectively. And it is an opportunity. Because if you are given the opportunity to climb the mountain, you can choose not to climb the mountain. You can stay down the bottom and not climb the mountain. That is always a choice. We are a planet of free will. But you don't get all that comes with climbing the mountain. You don't get the challenges, but you don't get the growth. You don't get to experience the light supernal. You don't get the clarity and the vision that you get at the top of the mountain, where the air is so pure and the prana and the subtle energy is awesome. So I'm going to close there and move into the meditation. And we'll come back to this and have a discussion, because I'm sure lots of you've got lots to add to what I have spoken of. So I just want to so when we come together in group meditation, meditation has its power when we connect with our intention, and that comes from the energy of the heart. So like minds connecting with true heart intention. And one of the ways that we can do that is through this affirmation of love. So I will read it out and just affirm it to yourself or read it out yourself. But just think that we're coming together as a group as we repeat this affirmation. And this group is time and space make no difference in meditation. So those who are watching the recording and those who are here live, we're all part of the same group who are coming together in those energies. So in the center of all love, I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. So I just invite you now. We'll come into a phase of group meditation. And I just invite you to sit up in your chair. You want your spine upright but not rigid, just so that the energy is aligned through the chakra system. Close your eyes and just imagine that you are sending a connection down into Mother Earth. So we're grounding our energy, either through your feet or through the base chakra, the base of your spine. You're sending a connection down into the earth. And now I want to bring your awareness to the present moment. So we do this by focusing on the senses. So just become aware of your body sitting in the chair. Become aware of the clothes on your skin. Now take this awareness to your sense of hearing and just allow the sounds in the room in this moment to come into your awareness. So that you are present. Now closing your eyes, take this awareness to your breath. And just watch the breath as it comes into your body. And watch the breath as it leaves. And just let it be a gentle focus resting on the breath. And feel your body beginning to relax. And as it does so, just take the breath a little deeper with each cycle. And imagine you are opening a channel down through the very center of your body. Starting at the heart center and the space between the sternum and your spine. And then this channel is opening. Taking the breath a little deeper until it's comfortable to breathe from your belly. And continue with this gentle focus on the breath. And let it take you inward into a point of stillness within. So thoughts will still arise in your mind and pass through. But just keep your focus on the breath. And if you find that your mind becomes distracted by thoughts, physical sensations or sounds, as soon as you realize, come back to the breath. Come back without judgment or criticism. Come back with loving kindness. Now bring your awareness to the center of your chest and breathe into your heart center. Imagine your heart center is filling with light, with love and gratitude. And these qualities will open this center like a flower bud opens into full bloom. So let your heart fill with light and love and gratitude. And know that you connect to the highest aspect of who you are, your highest self, your soul, through this heart center. I want you to visualize or feel white or violet purple or perhaps gold light coming down from your highest self through the crown of your head and down through each of the major energy centers or chakras associated with your spine, opening the channels and bringing them into alignment and into play. Imagine that your heart acts as a vessel to receive and distribute this lighted love that comes down through your crown, and the heart distributes this lighted love throughout your body. And just feel your whole physical body filling with lighted love. Filling with this purifying, cleansing, healing light, vivifying and strengthening your physical body, your immune system, calming your emotions and bringing clarity to your mind. Now let this lighted love flow out into the etheric body or the energy field or aura that surrounds your physical body. Now I want you to imagine that this lighted love flows from your heart out into your home and all the living beings that you live with, into your family, plants, pets, minerals. Allow it to flow beyond your home out into your street, your neighborhood, your community, touching the hearts and minds of all, consciously or unconsciously. Continue to radiate out this lighted love until it encompasses your whole town or city. Imagine this light is connecting with the light from all those who are joining us in this group meditation. And allow this light to fill this nation. Allow it to continue to radiate out and to fill this part of the world. To encompass this hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, and together we encompass the whole of the world. And we join with all groups who are working with light and with love in this way. Now envision our planet as if from space. And see our beautiful planet with this lighted love surrounding her like an aura. See little dots of light all over the planet of those who are working in this way. And then see this lighted love flowing down into our planet, healing her and restoring the balance in nature. So the air and waters are clean and pure again. There is a healthy protective ozone layer. Our planet is healed and restored. See all of the animal and plant life, the mineral life, flourishing. See the interconnected nature of all living things. And see this lighted love flowing into the hearts and minds of all of humankind, bringing peace, the will to good, so that we may establish right relations within ourselves, between us and others, within our families, our communities, our nations, and between nations, and between the whole human family, lifting our awareness and the collective consciousness so that we can learn to live in peace and harmony with all. Visualize these energies unifying and eliminating all divisions within humanity, healing and transforming human consciousness, and establishing right human relations. Continue to hold a space in your heart for this energy and let it radiate out. And now I invite you to repeat the word prayer, the great invocation together, either silently or aloud. Repeat it with conviction, pausing between each stanza to imagine the words being played out. And imagine this world prayer acting as a link between the inner spiritual realities and humanity, and as a channel through which divine love and light and purpose can flow into human consciousness, especially at the time of the new moon. So you'll find the great invocation on your screen. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Om. Now very slowly bring your energy back into your own energy field and start to come back into an awareness of your physical body. Just starting to move and stretch, and open your eyes when you are ready. And now I'm going to open up this evening for discussion. If you'd like to pose a question, answer a question, make a comment, I will unmute everybody and you can just indicate to me that you'd like to speak. Or if you prefer not to speak, you can always place your questions or your comments in the chat and I will read them out. You all look a bit bemused.
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for a very insightful talk and everything. What struck me was, well, two things, basically. The first was your mention about initiation, but the other thing was about this idea of us gradually beginning to act and behave in a more collective way. And it struck me that it's deeply ironic that this is happening when we're all actually isolated. This is the big paradox, you know, so the opposite of what appears to be happening may be happening esoterically. The other thing was, I mean, you mentioned about humanity undergoing some kind of major initiation, and I'm no doubt that this is the case, and that there is this gradual uplift in spiritual consciousness, despite all the outward appearances and all the horrors of the world. Again, it's something that's happening very esoterically and beneath the surface. And it also struck me that one of the comments that Alice Bailey and indeed others made about the two world wars of the 20th century, in fact, she regards them as a single war that began in 1914 and didn't end until 1945. She saw them as a single conflict. And she was then talking about humanity burning off large amounts of karma at that time. And I think my question to you, Teresa, would be, is this process being replicated at the moment? Is this a karma burning exercise, possibly?
Definitely. Definitely. Just the fact that it was sparked by a conjunction between Saturn and Pluto says it all, really. Yes, I have no doubt that this is raising, although it appears to be the opposite effect, it's raising awareness and it's raising consciousness. Because you think before last year, it's become crystal clear many of the issues facing humanity. In terms of the environment, we've been shown, we were shown quite quickly how things could heal. We've been shown our impact on our planet, because when we all stopped and stayed home, she healed. She healed incredibly in a few months. We have been asked to, yes, isolate, but to care and to have compassion for those who are vulnerable. We have been asked to make economic sacrifices for those who are vulnerable. We've come together to tackle this. Yes, there's a lot of misinformation. Yes, there's a lot of conflict and derision, but scientists are sharing information. We're in this together. And like you say, yes, it is ironic that we're all isolated, but even just the use of things like Zoom and the number of people who are connecting to people all over the world through Zoom, through the internet, through social media. And there are many initiatives that are growing. The seeds have been planted during this. Many people's careers and jobs, myself included, have completely disappeared and changed. And the path has changed. They're off on a new path and a new direction. So there's no doubt when change is this big, that the underlying reasons, we are not at the top of the mountain yet, so we are not clear. We haven't got that light supernal, that crystal clear clarity as to understand what's going on. But I think we're starting to get glimpses of it. And the big thinkers of the world are starting to talk about this as, you know, a major shift in consciousness, in the evolution of mankind. This little virus has come in here and stirred things up big time. And I see it as, like any growth process, like the labor pains of birth. Okay, it's not a nice process, but the end result is a good process, is a good result. And we are right in the midst of that. And it's not an easy time. It's a challenging time, but it's bringing up lots of karma. And like you said, I think there's a lot of karma. We've been given the opportunity to heal those issues, you know, put families together and lock them down in a box, and they have to sort out their issues. Do you know what I mean? It's there's a lot going on that is very positive. You know, it's stirred up the whole education system. It's stirring up the whole economic system. It's stirring everything up. And, you know, when you stir up a muddy pond, it gets worse for a while until it starts to clear. We haven't got to the clearing bit yet. We're still in the mire. We're still in the mud. But I do believe we've started on the path up the mountain. And I think that people who are aware are going to bring the others kicking and screaming up that mountain, even if they have to carry them and piggyback them up. You know, and those who've reached the mountaintop are coming down and offering a hand. And so, yeah, I hope that answers the question. I see it as like any challenge, very difficult when you're in it, and we will understand it in hindsight. Finn.
I'd just like to say a little bit about the astrology, because we've done something very different when we move from a full moon to a new moon. And basically there's a particular problem with this moon, because at this particular time, the solar energy is incredibly weak, because we're just after the winter solstice.
Yes, yeah.
And the difference between the new moon and the full moon is, in the new moon, you've got the sun and the moon working together. They're in conjunction, they're on top of each other. And the problem is, the moon is a little bit dependent in the new stage on the sun. But the sun is so terribly weak just after the solstice, when it's been reborn. The moon hasn't got much to work on.
No.
As you go through the year, you'll find that month by month it'll grow. But this is the weakest one.
Yes.
And when you get Saturn as a ruling planet on top of this, just at a conjunction with Jupiter, and Pluto's around as well, it's about as dark and as heavy as it can get. But we're still there. The candle hasn't gone out.
No. But also, the seeds are best planted in the thick, dark soil that is full of nutrients.
Oh, absolutely. But this is the heaviness that we're talking about. And if you see it something as not a sort of dead weight that will never change, but something that will be diminished with the passage of time, it helps.
Yes.
I mean, the other thing about Capricorn that you didn't mention, the Little Mermaid story is very Capricorn.
Okay.
Because the sign of Capricorn is actually the sea goat. It's got a fish's tail. And basically, if it's going to climb that mountain, it's got to get rid of its tail and use its legs. in terms of symbolism. Yes,
because it's also the crocodile. The crocodile moves and can transition easily from land to the water and is equally happy in both environments.
I think in some ways the crocodile is as good a symbol
Mm.
But the goat and climbing the mountain is an important one, undoubtedly.
Mm.
And you're perfectly right about initiation and all of that. But the other thing, you mentioned it in passing. You've also got the concept of the holy mountain.
Mm.
And you mentioned the story of Moses. That's a very Capricornian symbolic story.
Yes.
But one of the things I was thinking about, when you get to the top of the mountain, you've actually got a binary choice. It's not as simple as being the Bodhisattva, because you might just lose your footing and fall off.
Yeah.
You've climbed mountains. I haven't, obviously, but you know the way down is sometimes more difficult than the way up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And hopefully you do become the Bodhisattva, the one who's been at the top of the mountain, has that comprehension, and is able to come down and bless the lives of others.
Mm.
But you do get that in Buddhism. The Buddha, as soon as he was enlightened, he had a huge dilemma. He dealt with the evil forces. He saw it as it was. But then he said, is anybody going to listen to me? Or have I got to be totally silent?
No.
And eventually he decided it was worth trying to tell people what he had.
Yeah.
But in the Buddhist tradition, there are the Buddhas that keep silent.
Yes. Yes. And, you know, some work is, not all work is done on the physical plane. Much service work is done on the inner planes, on higher spiritual planes. Many people are unaware that they do a lot of their spiritual work while they're asleep in other dimensions. There's all sorts of ways of serving, not just the most obvious in the material world, in the realm of the senses, if you like. There are plenty of ways where people serve that are not so obvious or not so recognized. And there is the idea that to go through the eye of the needle, the rich man has to give away recognition, and sometimes that is a spiritual path. You're asked not to be the guru, but to quietly go and work in a different way. Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Finn, as always, enhancing our understanding. Does anybody else have any? I'm aware there's a question in the chat. Oh, Jackie, that confuses me, Finn. The sun is only weak in this hemisphere at the moment. Sorry, she's answered her own question.
Yes, she has. We're in the hemisphere that we're in.
Yeah.
It's midwinter, so this
Yeah.
is where it's weak.
That's
If you were at home down south, it'd be midsummer.
well, it's very hot in New Zealand at the moment. They're complaining. It's always odd. But yeah. Does anybody else have any further questions or comments? I hope that that has helped you to sort of understand what's going on at the moment and it develops and some trust and some hope and some faith, so that through a greater understanding, maybe seeing a bigger picture, we know that actually all is well and all is unfolding as it's supposed to. It doesn't mean it's much fun, but we wouldn't be here if we didn't have the capacity. We're all perhaps at different stages of walking up the mountain, or in your case, Finn, maybe you're flying, but we are where we're meant to be. And this energy of Capricorn will nudge us to move, keep moving, because you think of the goat, the crocodile, the mermaid, it's all movement. Okay, will-directed movement with a purpose. So have a lovely evening. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.